Oh, to think of that feeling of finally not needing to ask permission for the things that give us pleasure. And I also enjoyed an interview with her in which she described reading and basically preparing for 5 years to write, I believe, to write summonings, if I'm correct. And I'm fascinated by her work. I'm also fascinated by the work of Libby Bernardin, my friend. And Raena also spoke of writing that captures only a moment within a much larger world. And I like to think that in these gatherings, we are another small world, a closer world in which poets can feel free to express themselves. There's little here that is forbidden to the curious and receptive mind. And I know that our readers tonight will be illuminate and incantatory. So I'm going to bring Jim Lundy up to introduce our opening reader. Thank you.
Well, that is awfully hard to come up here right after the words illuminate and cantatory, and knowing that I'm not going to do a very good job with this introduction. But what I want to do first is take a picture of this beautiful audience. All right, it is my pleasure. Is this too loud? It is my pleasure to introduce Libby Bernardin. She is a fixture of poetry on the east coast of South Carolina. She has won 10 contests with the Poetry Society, her first one in 2007, and she kept Litchfield Tea and Poetry alive. It's now in its 16th year, and I think a lot of snowbirds returned up to New York and Ontario with the idea that South Carolina had a great literary thing going on through that program. She's got 2 books out and 2 chapbooks. I introduced her, it was right about 6 months ago, right after, I think it was the day after Hurricane Ian blew through. And it happened to be an okay day, and the audience was good. And I apologized to her then for not being very good at introducing people. But I was able to determine that she was the Mardi Gras queen of Wynyah High School in 1955. But Libby's remarkable, and I think her poetry and her reading style is going to speak for itself far better than I can. So a warm welcome for Libby Bernardin. About right.
Queen of Mardi Gras, huh? I didn't know I had won 10 contests. Wow. Well, I'm going to read one of my first poems that was published in the yearbook. But I want to thank, is Danielle here? I haven't seen her. Oh, there she is. I want to thank Danielle and Tamara and all of the people who worked so hard to make this a wonderful, wonderful group to be a part of. I've spent many years with the Poetry Society. You probably can tell that. But I'm delighted that to be here among my friends. Many of you I don't get to see often. In fact, I wouldn't be here if it weren't for friends. I don't even drive anymore. When you find love, seize it as though you have stumbled upon something remarkable. Say a winter wren, fledgling grounded under dense brush, almost hidden in morning's waking. Cup it as though consecrated. Place it in the nest from which it has taken to the air. Do not ask it to meet your needs. Do not ask it to choose. Do not ask anything of it. Think instead of how it might be when there is feel of feet on limb, wings ballooning out under shadows of crisp cedars, trusting as it plunges, grateful for gentle hands. Many of the poems published in this book I wrote during the pandemic year. And I think it was a time I just gathered myself together and wanted to do something instead of not doing anything. I kept saying, to what must I say no? Because that's the way it seemed to be. Everything was off limits. So that was kind of the question that guided my poetry as I began to write during the pandemic year. And to what must I say no? It is the year of no, so full of hours, plenty of time for argument, for what passes as rhetoric, empty now of logic, full of emotion, no trustworthy person to rely on for truth, nothing in the flow of days that slip away into quiet weeks, nada to the in-person gatherings, faces now scattered across my small screen. I on the coast wallow in my dream, where I am lost in the desert without a map. Numb to the kudzu bakery, the chocolate chip, the twice baked, the chocolate glaze dripped over the pound cake. And no more Facebook, CNN, MSNBC, even PBS. No to the old way. I have forgotten what it was like in this year of no slamming, like a sledgehammer, striking down a wall of yes. Red lights flashing everywhere. Many of you here in Charleston know that there was a young priest here with my last name, only I have his, I guess, many years ago, and he became a cardinal. And my mother-in-law and father-in-law were his aunt, and they were very close. My mother-in-law called him my beloved nephew. And I never could write about my mother-in-law, who was an Italian lady and quite determined about what she wanted in life and what I should have in my life. But finally, I was able to do this poem. My mother-in-law meets the Pope. Selina rushes to meet Il Papa, the man she most admired, not counting her beloved nephew to be named a cardinal. She, the sister of an Italian bishop and of the Simeon family, so high up in the Dolomites, was used to holiness, and there in her black mantilla, not far from the river Tiber, she looks up. He holds her hands and smiles. She asks if he likes chicken with his polenta and explains her recipe, a little onions in butter, onions is the way she said it, for rosemary chicken and my polenta, bene. This is a guess because I was walking up the Spanish steps with my sister, more to my liking. Even today, I think of my mother-in-law, her fingers and thumb making an O. Bless my daughter-in-law who is not here, who has too many dishes, who doesn't save her money for a rainy day. I have the Italian here, but I always mess it up, so. She could have admonished him to wear a sweater under his vestments, or asked him to bless the rosary she held in her hands. And bless always her son, my husband, who arrived at the steps to the Vatican apartments breathless and barely in time. I grew up in Georgetown, which is just up the road. I don't know, some of you may know something about it, but it's just a little town that's getting bursting at its seams right now. Ode. Love brought me back to this place, my city of smells, the mill grinding out pulp, the sulfur odor that stuck to my blouse, skirt, and hair. The river scent near my house under oaks, where we often ran on the banks to follow ships in the mercy of tugs. The Lois David against a Goliath hull. You could taste salt sea out my back door, a walk to shore where storm churned waters discarded a Caribbean iridescent whelk at my feet, deep in rutted sand and grit where meat once was. In my church, remodeled, the door I entered on my wedding day, now the back, closed to street sight. The once back, the now front, whiff of incense. Oh, memory song, how do you exchange asp for knave? How do you come back to the town where mill people were shunned by the old families? What calls you? A left behind longing for what is no more, for who bred you, broke you, sent you away in the first place. One of the things during the pandemic years, I realized that I needed to pay more attention to what was going on in the world, all the things that we were struggling with, to understand and to know. And I realized that I needed to be more of an observer, which is it's the poet's role to observe, to pay attention, and to comment on what happens in the world. And these next two poems, I think, show that. The price for long lives is sorrow. You could say a long and measured life walks with a dream, mysteries clotheslined across the sky, blowing like sheets. Words keep unpinning, unfolding, letters spelling out worn out stories. What am I to do with Joseph of the many-colored coat, an imprisoned Hebrew with God-inspired dream talk? Pharaoh chose him who stored the grain to save plague-torn Egypt. And where are the Josephs among us? The would-be king, thank God, is gone. We have a new leader. May he be among the long-lived, for we the people who haven't the courage of a sharecropper's son, crossing the bridge, first to violence, last to peace, always his aim. His caisson marches. Remember his long life of sorrows, his scattered good troubled seeds, like wildflowers, purple fringed, lily leaved, sweet shrub, spice bush, bloodroot, uproot into the world, blossom, blossom. South, a brief history. And now the rain, rivets of water stream from the backyard. I'm reading Natasha Trethewey's poems of her mother, once married to her white Canadian father. Mississippi, my own mother's native state, Gulfport, where my grandparents are buried, Alvin and Nell, the preacher and his wife at peace on hallowed ground. Once at a talk by a Southern writer, I heard a woman from Ohio tell a woman from Chicago the reason her son's wife didn't have a Southern accent was that she was educated. We all have our presumptions. Natasha, the laureate, returns to the South. I return to Mississippi, state that made a crime of me. Mulatto, half-breed. Mulatto, offspring of one parent, one white parent, one Black. Also Creole child of maybe Spanish, maybe French in America, and Black. Natasha, writing the blend of worlds. My father says my grandmother refused to speak to my great aunt, Maud, whose child was born creamy, rich, dark. The guilt, caught by it, unknowingly nurtured. We all carry our beliefs' pain. Out of history comes Paul Robeson singing of the do-nothing river, of backbreaking work, of bondage, his voice water deep before crossing the road in a king tide. I forgot to check the time. Do I have time for one more? I'm going to read one that's kind of in a draft, but I think it's coming along well enough that I could share it with you tonight. Shreveport, 1954, before the late crowd. And this is after Ada Lamone's poem, Nashville After Dark. It was a barrel of a room, music a boom from speakers, the sultry drumbeat as though a queen arrived, expecting voices with hands full of dollar bills. Me sitting between my cousin and her husband, and before me a beauty with stars on her tits, and I guess a G-string, or she was stacked and shone like she could make it in LA. So what's she doing in this raunchy beer-smelling place with me feeling sorry for her? As we watch those long stocking legs, a garter for dollars, wrap themselves around the pole. No moolah anywhere I could see. Early patrons just eating peanuts over at the bar, knocking down a few. Then the MC introduces a Miss Duguay, here on her 18th birthday. Give her a hand, guys. Come on, put them together for the Carolina girl. And me turning around to see her, Miss Duguay. Oh, Miss Duguay. Then my cousin elbowing me and whispering, stand up, take a bow, which I reckon I did, stunned. Did I hear a drum roll? I awkwardly stood up, sat down red-faced, beauty blowing me kisses gingerly. No, warily. Later that night, I thought of her pole dancing on my birthday, and I hoped she would make it to LA, and I would find her on the cover of Photoplay magazine, far away from that vacuous room, empty, except for a few beer barrel guys with no money in their hands for her garter. Thank you.
Hello. Thank you, Libby. That was amazing. I really also loved hearing you say tits. I'm Danielle DeTiveris. I'm the program chair, and I'll be introducing Raena. Raena Shirali is the author of 2 collections of poetry. Her first, Guilt, with Yes, Yes Books in 2017, which won the 2018 Milt Kessler Poetry Book Award, and her second, Summonings, with Black Lawrence Press, just published last fall, which won the 2021 Hudson Prize. Summonings is currently a finalist for Forward Review's 2022 Indie Prize and is on the long list for the Julie Suck Award. Winner of a Pushcart Prize and a former Philip Roth resident at Bucknell University, Shirali is also the recipient of prizes and honors from Vita, Gulf Coast, Boston Review, and Cosmonauts Avenue. Formerly a co-editor-in-chief of Muzzle Magazine, Shirali now serves as faculty advisor for Folio, a literary magazine dedicated to publishing works by undergraduate students at the national level. She holds an MFA in poetry from The Ohio State University and is assistant professor of English at Holy Family University. The Indian American poet was raised in Charleston, South Carolina, and now lives in Philadelphia. In April of 2017, Raena and I swapped manuscripts. She had just come out with her first collection and was already in the process of determining whether her new poems would be a chapbook or another full-length collection. Raena is an incredibly prolific and voracious writer. In that shorter collection, Raena already had the framework for what would become Summonings, and the same title too. We're really good with titles. Work that investigated the ongoing practice of witch hunting in India. Those persona poems are literally and figuratively at the center of this book, a skill Raena excels at and one that she will be exploring tomorrow during the seminar. So lucky us, that's at 10 here tomorrow. But then she spent the next couple of years writing what would be the rest of the book, poems that interrogate the speaker's authority and that trace a mirror of misogyny and violence between her two cultures. As Raena writes in the foreword to Summonings, as democracies, both nations purport to value equality, yet are sites of nationalist movements rooted in racist and colonialist ideologies. Ideologies that in both countries have also involved literally hunting women as a means of maintaining patriarchal order. Only Raena could have written the poems in this collection. Her vision and voice is evident in every step of her creative process. These poems are deeply researched, and yet they are alive on the page. They are about there and about here. They are personal and political, filled with rage and humor and despair, and sometimes a little hope. As Raena writes in the closing poem, At Home in the Empire, quote, this poem, wishful thinking, women, I want it to be believable, that we leave the bar, the sky stoop it with gold, that no one follows us home. Please welcome Raena Shirali.
Hi, folks. Give me just one moment to get set up. I'm going to do a timer. I've got a list. I've got a bottle of water. Can you hear me okay? And you can see me over the microphone. Always nice when that works out. I didn't hear a confirmation of that. I'm also very loud. Is this too loud? I'm a really loud reader. Okay, if at any point I'm screaming, someone like make eyes at me. Yeah, great. Okay, thank you so much to all of you for being here. Thank you to the Poetry Society for having me. If I took the time to outline just how special it is to be reading here right now, we'd be here all night. So I'm just gonna stop here, say thank you, and get to the poems. As Danielle so beautifully put it, these poems engage with the practice of witch hunting in India, which is ongoing. That means even though legislation has been passed in individual states to attempt to stop the practice, it continues in certain areas. If you want to know more about that, buy my book. I've been told to say that. Okay, and I'm going to start by reading a poem that embodies a little bit of what Danielle spoke to here as well. I write a lot in this book about what it means to write about a subject that is so far away from my own personal experience. So I'm going to begin with a poem called On Projection. All you need to know here, folks, you always need to know something, is that when I point up, that means I'm indicating language that I've taken from anthropological research and put into the poem. So up is someone, not me. On projection. The gun to my head is ownership. The gun to my head is I'm taking the word empathy and hanging it as on a laundry line and watching it waver in wind and also not believing in words and also relying on them. Reader, men and women alike shudder themselves with superstition. Supposing I board the plane, remain suspended, some sort of cloud, buoyant, detached, for one full day, followed by my arrival in a place not of my mother's dialect, not of my father's kin, armed with language, patrilineal, marang buru, flower feast, nage era. How surely I'd arrive with detriments, visible tattoos, hair dyed lighter at the ends, English, a target pinned to the chest, the West, the inescapable truth of my birth. To explain the distance between self and subject is to admit the unlikelihood of myself understanding a given subject. I'm talking theorizing understanding. I'm talking my inevitable failure to embody. Reader, consider the basic elements of this narrative. Dayan, Oja, hunted, godly. Assume telling any story fully involves considering all sides. Here, men wield village secrets like weapons, catapult accusations through the fields. I've read so much about legs and backs, ache-laden, and no choice but to eat gruel daily, and yet I'm just camera. I'm shutter, closed, I'm protected from light. I'm just telling a story to which I'll never know an end. No boarding the plane, no bitter route, no lean season, no poem. It is quiet in here. You guys can make noise. Helps to let a little noise out sometimes, especially because it's important to acknowledge I'm hitting you with a lot of intense information. If you need to just like groan loudly, that's cool with me. Okay, so you heard a couple words there that I'd like to elaborate on. One is the word dayan. That is one of several words in several dialects that means witch. The way I use it in this book, I think it's important to identify, is that I use it to mean a woman who has been accused of being a witch, not necessarily a witch. And you also heard the word oja, that refers to a witch hunter who also, in many cases, is the priest of these villages. So, yeah. How are we doing? Good. Okay, I'm gonna hit you with some more research. Just buckle up. Flags are going down, going here. All right. Okay, so associated with each poem in this book, there is back matter. The goal with this back matter is to show you what pieces of research I read before or as part of the sort of inspirational and generative process associated with a given poem. Okay, so they're sort of like a build your own. You can ignore them if you would like, you'll be fine. I like to provide them in readings. I find them helpful. This one reads, my hand goes up. faced with poor wages and the associated dismal living and working conditions that accompany a suppressed working class, workers in these villages where these hunts occur connect the micro village level strain of ailments to witchcraft, rather than blaming deaths on the lack of proper medical aid for the workers. It's also important to note some forces that engender a culture where witch hunting happens. Misogyny is obviously one, but some others include land disputes, anti-colonial tensions, fear and suspicion of women's sexuality, and religion, folklore, and patriarchal customs. Big breath, everyone. At first, trying to reach those accused. I swallowed burnt matchsticks, her hair a tar tumbleweed in the room's south-facing corner. I did this to pray, and I did this to feel. And then I swallowed my old chant, his name, like I'm not made of my oppressor's undoing. And then I swallowed theory. I swallowed plantation politics, tried prying plantains from my lips, plump from sitting on a velvet couch and touching them dry to my wrists while reading about her body, strung up for slaughter, called names in the oppressor's language, covered in silt. And then I swallowed puddles. And then I swallowed sandalwood and tried to cloak and cover and render her erotic, for the oppressor sometimes saves the objects of his desire. And then I swallowed desire. I held the smoldering cow dung patty at my core. I smelled like it. I was shit and wanted to be shit. And then I swallowed pretense, swallowed countries. Why try to get close when you could become, I said. And then I swallowed myself, chased me down with goat milk and shorn fur. And then I turned to the page and swallowed it. And I took it like a shot and took it like a man and took the punches and still wandered through mazes of huts, asking my people what it felt like to be oppressed. And then I swallowed tea. I swallowed the fertilized soil. And then I swallowed braids and locust shells, and I wanted to smell like incense because the oppressor values patchouli and cedar. So I bought a candle to smell like my heritage. And then I swallowed wax and was viscous, and suddenly then I could not move. And my ankles were bound, but they left my wrists free. And I could not speak, but still I mouthed a name I'd never heard, and I felt her like my own ghost. There was no magic. It was not profound. All right. Second to last piece of research. We're hanging in there, research-wise. Good, just good to check. Again, confused? iBook. Okay, so this next piece actually appeared originally in Swamp Pink, what is now called Swamp Pink. Yay, I figured I'd read it for that. Yay to all Swamp Pink people in the audience. Some things you do need to know here. One of the most important texts that I read while constructing this book was actually not about witch hunting. It's Susan Sontag's text regarding the pain of others, which discusses the ethics of, as artists, looking at the suffering of others, really thinking about this role of poet as observer, right? Which is endlessly complex, right? And considering how to approach the subject ethically, right? So you're gonna hear a little Sontag in here. You'll also hear this. In almost all cases, the identity of the witch is that of a local village woman whose reputation can be easily maligned through accusations of witchcraft. As Jharkhand Assembly Party Whip Radhakrishna Kishore stated in 2016, people here brand a woman witch and kill her even when the village well goes dry in summer. And you'll hear names in this poem actually of women who've survived being tortured. Ghazal against declining to name the subject. Bahura Bai, it matters that you have a name, that you live past the story. You were young, Tirat Sahu, chased out of your home by 12 or more friends, men, family, called antisocial, killer. Younger still, the children falling sick, cattle keeled over, growing rancid in year-long heat, buried as afterthought. In your own youth, you thought Dians were real. The process of attraction, the power of girls to inflame passion, to subdue boys at their will, made your young skin prickle. Here, there is no archetype ungendered, and blood like yours, like mine, doesn't stay profitable long. And I'm too young to be telling your story, and privileged, and the rain keeps falling like the sky's own mountain, your youths hiding under their cot, your husband accused of sheltering you. Jam Bai, there is only more terror. Gone now, those youthful days, the men would stop by your house, ask for rice, for roots. Even then, the killing had begun. No one here, at last, stays young. Well, Danielle mentioned the word hope in an intro, making me kind of rethink some things. But I don't have any of that for you yet. But I'll reorganize some stuff. We'll give you 2 hopes right at the end. Okay? Yeah, okay. One person going through it over there. I see you. All right, Danielle did also mention, right, tomorrow I'm holding this workshop here. Please come. It's important to note that lots of the poems in this book are persona poems. So for those who might be less familiar, a persona poem involves stepping outside of your own subjectivity and attempting to speak from another's perspective, right? I came to believe through the writing of this book that task in poetry is always innately doomed to fail. But I don't think of that as inherently negative, right? Failure is where exploration can come from. Failure is like what art is. For anyone in the room who knows the experience of trying to make art, you fail a lot. So I often say in interviews that this book is a failure, and by that I don't mean that I hate it. I'm quite proud of this failure. So I'll read you a little failure. I tried to, in those very first drafts that Danielle and I exchanged, and that made it into the book, right? So failure is here and valuable. I tried to embody every aspect of the landscape of a village where these witch hunts take place. Obviously, this involved a great deal of research that was like not something I could ever recommend a human put themselves through. But it happened. And so there are poems in this book that are from the perspective of like tea leaves. This one is from the perspective of the mountains that surround one of these villages. We're good? That was a cogent explanation, even for me. The mountains speak to the village. From here, you're just flecks in the emerald, which I'd never say to hurt you. I'm saying 100 bodies running through a field, chasing one wind-whipped sari. What spectacle do you call yourselves? Swarm of termites flooding a mossy beam. I'm not trying to be picturesque. I'm trying to say I was dead to this earth when I got here. But you, tanned arms swaying, you pluck a weed from soil, grind it between teeth like a pestle. Mortal, you do not think yourself. Mortal, waving a branch you've fashioned into a spear. If she sat with you on the stone by the river and you felt something inside you like a vine creeping across your veins, mortal, I'm telling you, all she did was exist. Hey kids, try failing. People will clap. Here's a poem about how it feels to write a persona poem. It's called On Persona. Fledgling each time I attempt another body. Call it tired of my own trauma, the riding into and the riding out of. I want to sing a song of escape, won't admit poetry's formula. Begin with an image, spiral out. My many masks hang from window latches. Misnomer to call them adornments. Of these works as a whole, I say, find here no monetary value. No cultural clout. The papers declare the line break dead as I write into death. Here is a scythe, and here a tree, and here me pretending. I am offering opportunities to feel taken, like one's breath away, or by the experience of, as in, take my piles, reader, my silver cups, my tarnished bangles. Try to fit them narrow around your wrists. Tell me you feel free. Trying to kind of pace out the hope I'm going to give you. It's really not that much. I've got to be sparse with it. Okay, 3 more. Doing good on time. Love a timer. How you guys doing? Good? Okay. Yeah. Hope. Let's hope. Okay. Normally I preface this somewhat hopeful, definitely angry poem by reading you a whole spiel about goddess Kali and like Hinduism and goddesses and stuff. But again, trying to sell some books, so no spiel for you. You can go read it. I'm being cruel today, I love it. Okay, this poem has a title that leads into the poem. Great trick, if anyone's in final portfolio construction time, I see students are here, just make the first line the title. Great trick. It's called The Universe Will End and Kali Will Still Be Here. The universe will end and Kali will still be here. Solo, skirting the rim of our smolder, our ruin, all lotus bud, bell beat, and drum song. Those many hands and the severed heads they hold, mask demonic, a warning. Alone in the neither, light nor dark. She will stay the dusty blue of not time, will evade, even as she creates, is death and is energy, is. I cannot imagine this, outliving one's infamy, how women survive being burned alive and offer in return forgiveness. Girls with reconstructed faces refusing hate. I want to crown all victims the safety of fur, give each our own grove, something sacred. I want to worship dichotomy, O goddess of lust and violence. I tire of trying to find peace. I want to unleash, to unearth rage. Kali, we lived and our bodies were trespassed. Release us from this cage. How low can I go here? How are we doing? We go all the way? Woo. Good, that was your moment of hope. Okay, I'm not gonna take you that low. It's a Friday night. I'm about to read you something really upsetting, I'm sorry. Okay, so yeah, one low and then hope. Thank you guys, this has been so wonderful. In the foreword for this book, I include some research from scholars that was incredibly pivotal for me in constructing the text. And one particular quote really stuck with me. It's from some Thomson Reuters survey findings from 2018. And they read verbatim, India is the world's most dangerous country for women due to the high risk of sexual violence, according to a poll of global experts. The only Western nation in the top 10 was the United States, which ranked third when respondents were asked where women were most at risk of sexual violence. Garba, or womb plus lamp, or as in every tradition, there is a woman and her body, and both are vessels. Toenail polish, warped waxen from sand. You leave your body behind again. Mere rind, edges buzzing from unsought touch. You end up in a skeleton house and on a driveway with the sun holding vigil. That central flame, her silent drumming. Her reminder, you could, if you flared, contain something alive. Instead, you skin your bare soul's raw, shuddering up and up the drive. You are so many girls trying to move unbridled. You forget yourself. You retch and tear. Oh, only repentance. Oh, patriarchied psyche, split in perpetuity. Once you stood barefoot on linoleum, eating something delicious out of the jar. It was the year of your favorite animal, the year of mosquito nets canopying your twin-sized heart. You jostled your ankles to hear a tinkling. You sent your arm heaving to twist your body in a circle of women that never breaks. Those women never broke formation. Those women who made you, who taught you the footwork, its weave and lilt, but never how to run. And for your little dose of hope. Thanks again, y'all have been so wonderful. At home in the empire, The patio at this bar births brown ladybugs, and I'm burning my mouth for fun. On the edges of Desi women's lips, milk souring, some liquor to help us forget. Cities in America, and I am tired. Villages back home. I squint and almost belong, and train cars rattle, peopled, my God, limbs everywhere. Call this day scant and hear the letters wrong. Call me foreign, and God have I complied. Women I'd call sister. I see you. There's soot coating rails, and the heat is our house, and I can't rid this book of my life, and we're all coins left in fountains, making language of strife. Alina's name is a song, and she knows it, and I'm veering political over cardamom at the bar. I gesture with my hands, and it is universal. I ask, what are we stained by, if not our love of men? Where do we go at sunset? Who sees us on the ground, in the dark, clouds of dust in our wake, shuffling to or from ourselves? My mouth is on fire, and I light the thing backwards, and Alina says, today is the day of 300 hugs, just between us. She's got a bottle in her hand and the posture of an immigrant, and I won't rid this book of our lives. This poem is about recognition. This poem, wishful thinking. Women, I want it to be believable that we leave the bar, the sky stupid with gold, that no one follows us home. Thank you.
How magnificent was that? Wow, I took my breath away indeed. And I want to say we see you and we recognize you and we give you 300 hugs. So tomorrow she'll be back with us to give a workshop, and it is near persona versus far persona, writing the other, writing the self. Writing from the perspective of another requires great investment and momentous risk, all with no promise of reward. So why do poets continue to explore persona as a creative approach in our work? In this seminar, we will explore Shirali's scholarship on the persona spectrum, discussing near persona and far persona as ways of conceiving our poem's speakers and ultimately engaging in philosophical exploration of the ethical stakes and creative potential inherent in stepping outside our own subjectivities. I can't wait. So 10 o'clock tomorrow, be here with us, and please check the newsletter, the long-winded newsletter that I send out every month, telling you all the wonderful things we're doing in the Poetry Society and the events that are coming up, because I won't be able to remember all of them here. And I will tell you that we have a Poetry Trails event. If anyone is in the Greenville area and would like to join us, we'll be having that event on the 29th, and I can tell you more about it if you want to come and walk with us. Thank you. Please buy some books, go back and take a look, and then have a drink with us also this evening. And I'll see you next time with Glennis Redmond. Glennis Redmond. Thank you.